All right, hello, and welcome everybody to a very special edition of the Jersey Overtime. I'm John Fischer, New Jersey Devils former blogger, technically an author, thanks to the man to my side over here. I am sitting with a legend of the business, so to speak, of analytics. He's shaking his head because I'm gassing him up on purpose, but he is truly a legend in the sense that he's a former editor of the Hockey Prospectus. I've got one of the annual books right here that I am a contributor of. He used to work for the NHL. He's still grinding and helping winning games for the Quinnipiac Bobcats. Timo Seppa, also host of the Hockey Data Show on SiriusXM. I completely forgot the latest thing that you've been doing.
Yeah, bury the lead. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks for all those things. I think you hit a lot of the main things. Glad to be on. We were writing chapters and books for Hockey Prospectus from 2010 to 2016. I'm pretty sure you were involved with all of those or nearly all of those.
Yep.
So you're a big help with the certainly doing chapters for the Devils and Rangers and Islanders and others. So you helped get me up to speed on certainly a bunch of Devil stuff at the time. So always happy to do something like this with you.
Well, thank you, Timo, and thank you again for continuing to reach out, be in touch, and keeping me in the loop of all these things. So, I guess that's the first place I want to really start with is what you've been up to lately. It looks like the main thing has been the Hockey Data Show, which is, again, you can listen to on SiriusXM and the NHL Network Radio. I know Dr. Malloy has moved on to the land of the St. Louis Blues. So how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. That was a great opportunity for me to, I've known Shane for 10 years at least. Met him at one of the MIT Sloan Analytics conferences, hit it off with him, would see him there every couple of years. And then there was an opportunity to do this show together. He'd been doing the Hockey Prospect radio show for, I don't know what it was, 15 years. So he basically split that 2-hour segment into an hour of that show and an hour of the Hockey Data Show. I think he wanted to spread his wings and do some other stuff, show that what he knows as far as certainly the sports science and performance side, and he brought in a lot of insights on that side. Obviously, I was handling a bunch of hockey analytics things, and very excited for Shane to be moving on to be director of strategic planning for St. Louis and reporting directly to Doug Armstrong, who's president there now. So that's great for Shane. And as far as the PhD, I think he's defending in August, so probably jumping the guns there on the PhD. I haven't heard that he's like ticked off the last couple boxes, but
Okay.
yeah, great stuff there for Shane. Anyway, you were asking just overall. I spent 8 years at the NHL. Most recently, I was senior manager of hockey analytics there, and I left a little over a year ago. Kind of did what I wanted to do there. Great time at the NHL. Worked with a great group of people there. Chris Baker is one of the notable people that some people would know from the NHL. He's one of the guys that's driving puck and player tracking. Certainly, I was doing a lot of that ideation with him there. But like I said, kind of been there, done that, wanted to move on and do some other things. So the two main things I have jumped back into are, I've jumped into the Hockey Data Show at NHL Network Radio, and then kind of spending that much more time with the Quinnipiac Bobcats. I was a hockey analytics advisor for them back in 2014 through 2016. Then I worked with Clarkson for 8 years. Um, Back for my third year with Quinnipiac now. But last year, after I left the NHL, I got the title of director of hockey analytics there. So happy to be part of the staff there, one of the best staffs in D1. And we have got I think, a really good team returning this year. So looking to make a bunch of noise this year.
Oh, absolutely. And you covered a ton of things I definitely want to dive a little bit more
Oh,
into because
are we done now?
are we done now? No, we're not done. We got more to talk about. We got more to say because you covered a lot of things I think a lot of people should be appreciating. That puck and player tracking in particular at the NHL. We'll start there for this.
Yeah.
Massive improvement for a lot of what we've done because for many, many years, and one of the most important essays from the old hockey prospectus days, the puck prospectus days, I think it was Tom Awad that wrote this. The castles are all built on sand. It was about scorer bias. It was about rink bias. It was about, a reminder that all the numbers that we were collecting and arguing over, it's at subject at the mercy of some scorer, who had an opinion. Now with this puck tracking and player tracking, that's a lot more objective. It's a lot less subjective. Obviously, there's going to be corrections and other things you're working with, and there's always going to be improvements behind the scenes. But could you walk us? I don't know how much of the game you can give away here, so to speak, but what were the challenges to get to this point where now we have more accurate recording of data for the NHL?
Yeah, certainly I can talk about some of it. I mean, a bunch of stuff is out there in articles. So
Yeah.
just but with my background, I think I can kind of bring it together. The NHL was looking to do something along these lines probably for 10 years. Trying to find the right technology. Um, there were some stumbles, right, where they wanted to go with a technology from a company called Jogmo, which was, I don't know, German, Swiss, something like that. Sort of research university kind of based, and the NHL was kind of moving slowly with that, and they went out of business. So the NHL scrambled. The NHL scrambled, and they picked a similar-ish technology, working with a company called SMT, that's based out of the U.S. Now, a lot of people assume that SMT are the ones that are driving, all the ideas behind this, all the algorithms, to what does a pass look like, what does a shot look like,
Right.
and that's really a misconception, because it's groups like Chris Baker's group at the NHL that are coming up with the definitions for what's a pass, what does possession look like, whatever. So, and then SMT is the company that is putting the technology in the rinks, and it is putting those algorithms into use, into programming. So I guess the puck and player tracking data, branded NHL Edge, that's been around for 5 years now, about 2021, publicly. Part of the issue is what's been available is pretty much the same as when it started. I mean, there's a few caveats here, but it is shot speed, player speed, distance skated, offensive zone time for players and teams. I'm probably missing one. Shot map for which
the different
works into high danger areas and that kind of stuff. So all of those things are good, but they haven't rolled out anything new for 5 years. Now, that doesn't mean like things haven't been tweaked, like things haven't been improved as well. I mean, a few things that have flowed under the radar, partially because the NHL just doesn't know how to trumpet these things when there are wins. Out of puck and player tracking, I'm losing track now, but like 3 or so years ago, time on ice, which was previously done by off-ice officials. So a team of officials that sit up in the press box and look at like, oh, so-and-so came off the ice now. So-and-so came on the ice, and they were doing that through a touch pad interface. And, hopefully they noticed who was coming on and off, and they didn't get the jersey numbers wrong, especially for the away team. Now that's done through puck and player tracking, through the chips in the players' jerseys. So, as of 3 years ago, all of a sudden that became accurate. Same thing with shot locations. 2 or so years
Big thing.
ago, shot locations became accurate, and people complained online. Hey, the NHL have ruined my expected goals models.
Yep. Sorry,
I
man.
don't know. I don't know if that's ruined by giving you the actual correct data now. And like, yes, you need to readjust your models, but there's stuff like that that's been good. I guess the issue is that other stuff just has been really slow coming out. Passes, possession, zone entries,
Yeah.
battles, whatever it is. Those things haven't come out, and I like the fact that the NHL is rolling stuff out once it's really done well. The problem is, in the meantime, everybody needs to be going to Stathletes or Sportlogic or Instat or something else to get those stats, which may or may not be as good as they should be. So I don't know. That's a bunch of stuff. What do you want to grab onto there, John?
Well, there's a lot to chew on. I mean, it's a give and take type of situation, and this is true whether it's hockey stats, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's research. Ultimately, it comes down to what do people want, and I think and this is one of the later topics I want to get into is more like where do you see the future of this analytical program? You know, the ideas, the concepts, and I think for the past 5, 6, 7 years, it's been a lot of there's a term for this. I'm completely blanking on it. The street light effect. You know, we care about the stats that we can actually look up and see, but we're not really taking us think about, okay, what else do we really want to know? Like shot location, we know is important. Great, cool. Do we want to consider the off puck placement of other people? Well, that would be nice to know. Screens are a real thing. Shooting through traffic is a very real thing. Players talk about that all the time, but it's also a very difficult thing to model. It's a very difficult thing to track. It can be very expensive to do all this type of stuff. And so you just take what you can get and just say, we'll just make an assumption. We'll make an estimate and we'll figure it out from there. So, I mean, I definitely agree, you know, from your standpoint that like the NHL doesn't want to really release anything until they know it's good, ready for that public scrutiny about how valuable this is. But, you know, I can also agree, like, okay, but what else are you doing behind the scenes beyond just refining everything to make it more accurate and more precise? And, you know, the big challenge, I think, is going to be what do people want to really know? And when I say people, it's not just hockey enthusiasts or fans like myself. What do the executives want to know? What do the coaches want to know? What do the players want to know? And are they ready to get the data that may tell them that the things they're doing isn't so great? That's another factor in all of this. So I can appreciate all the different challenges involved. You know, let's just say, sake of argument, if you were back in that role or maybe more power in that role, you know, what would be something you would want to push for that they could be working on and could be trying to, you know, push the envelope, so to speak. So Sportlogic and so forth, no disrespect to them, but that the NHL is the leader of this and not as opposed to a third party, you know, just figuring it out from the video that they can get.
Yeah, I mean, one example that I brought up, and I gave a talk at the International Hockey Analytics Conference in Linköping, Sweden in early June. I gave a talk that was called Garbage In, Garbage Out, What's in Your Analytics? So I was, you know, hitting on this topic there. Help me pick up the thread here, John.
Yeah. So basically, you were at a talk in Finland about garbage in, garbage out. So about basically the data coming in and data coming out with respect to how we analyze things.
Yeah, no, just your question there again. I'm sorry.
My question. So I'm sorry. If you let's say you were back in the NHL role, maybe with more power in this case, what would be something you would want to push for?
I know where I was heading with that.
Okay.
Sorry, but
that's
about
okay.
that. A little forgetful professor there. Anyway, one of the topics I brought up, and our old buddy Matt Collar, who also worked on Hockey Prospectus, he put out a book that if anybody's interested in football analytics, Football is a Numbers Game, by Matthew Collar, and he went into what was going on at Pro Football Focus, PFF, and that's the third party company that has really become the gold standard for what NFL teams have done as far as analytics, whether it's looking at prospects in college or looking at players in the NFL. And the reason why I bring them up is because uh, football has become a sport where it's been driven by this third party provider. Now, they were recently acquired. They were acquired by the same company that recently acquired SportLogic. And there's a lot of concern on the football side for um, is yeah, is the product going to stay the same
Yeah.
now that it's been acquired? Certainly, you and I have both worked in industry. I've worked through acquisitions, and usually when companies get acquired, technology companies, the new company has new ideas, and it doesn't quite stay the same.
No.
So really, the importance of the NHL getting it right is the fact that if you get it right, it kind of stays stable, and you're not at the mercy of, like I was telling with that story with Jogmo going away, who was going to be the um, puck and player tracking technology provider. Okay, they went away. Technology companies go away. Small technology
Yeah.
companies are very innovative, but they can get acquired. This kind of stuff happens anyway. So,
Yeah.
all right, that's a bunch of background there. So the NHL really, I mean, it's been a question of resources. I mean, the NHL could have had this in the bag if they doubled the resources, and if management was focused on this in the right ways. Um, so, do I have do I have confidence that the management on the technology side is going to do that at the NHL? I don't, and that was part of the issue. Is, if you're putting me back there, um, unless you made me czar of analytics there, you're fighting against a lot of the same stuff with um, you know, from being around hockey analytics for all this time, there's a lot of deep knowledge that goes into this. It's not just kind of like, hey, we'll throw some technology at it, we'll throw machine
Yeah.
learning at it, we'll throw AI at it, and
Yeah.
everything
We'll
will
do
be
a math. We'll
fine.
do an equation. Yeah. Doesn't work
Everything
that
will
way.
be fine. So just like, let AI figure it out. Maybe they'll figure out something better than what you guys have. There is so much subject matter expertise involved to just it's not like AI. I'm not like a Luddite here. It's not like it's useless. I use it every day, and certainly if people use it in helping write code and whatever else, it AI has a lot of places. This is to just like hand wave and say like AI will do this for us because we didn't put the resources into it, and now AI will figure it out. I don't think it's the case. So, have I really answered your question for what I would do if I was back in the NHL and I was the czar of analytics?
Yeah.
Yes, I would. On a parallel path, I would proceed to see what new technology, what AI can do. But it really comes down to having enough people working on this prioritized to say, hey, let's turn out passes, let's turn out possession, let's turn
Yeah.
out battles, and let's have the product. The product should be done already. I mean
Yeah.
but there are other priorities where you need people who are doing social media analytics or whatever else. And the priorities they just never have been anywhere close to adequate on this side.
Yeah, and that's ultimately a big issue, and that's true in a lot of businesses. This isn't just this, NHL issue, but ultimately how management, own leadership, what they want to prioritize. That's going to decide who gets the resources, who gets the attention, and as such, opportunities may be lost. As you said, we could have had some of these discussions sorted out, and the NHL could be the ones to say we figured out battles. You can track players by battles, whether it's simple things for the many people who just want to settle arguments on the internet, and people who may actually use that information for actual decision making for which players they sign, what tactics they want to run, what teams look for, what they want to improve on, and so on and so forth. But it's an unfortunate situation, but it's a common one in business, unfortunately.
So just spinning forward to, I'm sure you want to ask about some of my Quinnipiac stuff
Yeah,
at
we're gonna
some
get there.
time. Yeah, I mean, like I've done this for 12 years on the D1 side, and because either going back further in history, nothing was available out there, or because now I don't trust what's out there when I'm evaluating my own team. A lot of the analytics that I use are ones that I track myself because I
Right.
trust myself. I add in the nuance that I need. Is it time consuming? Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had a good source for it that I would trust, I would use it. And there are times where I will use something from Instat or SportLogic or whatever,
Right. You
and
need a
and
third
that's
party.
fine. But for the majority of what I do, unfortunately, I track a bunch of stuff myself because, like I said, I trust myself, um, and it's just for what I need. Or if I was on an NHL team, you know, I I think there might be a place for that there too. I mean, there's NHL data is going to be better than data in juniors and college. So I mean, there's a little different there, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to something I wanted to bring up. Like, it's great that you and the team and Chris Baker and a lot of people over there behind the scenes done a great job in the NHL and as well as SMT to get the technology in there. But that's not going to be available at the college level. That's not going to be available at the junior level. Certainly not at
Right.
youth hockey for the players that Quinnipiac and many other schools are going to be recruiting, which may now just be the CHL at this point. But that's we'll put a pin in that. We'll get to that in a little bit. So what type without pulling too much of the curtain away and giving up what you do, like you kind of answered part of this question, which is like, so you do a lot of the work yourself to collect the information and to process it. So to that end, what other challenges other than just sheer time and sheer you know what let me ask this in a different way. When you typically are looking, are you just sitting there with game tape and just manually recording, okay, I've noticed this entry, I've noticed this pass, I've noticed this, and then just like charting it along? Or is there more of a different systemic way of tracking this? Because again, there isn't the tracking data to have a system collected for you for the college and the youth level. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, you can get data for college games, junior games, from SportLogic. Um, a lot of people think that it is all done automatically through AI and whatever. But all those reports come 12 or 14 hours after the game. So clearly, there's a bunch of manual work done there
Yeah,
too.
it's a lot like Opta
Um,
used to do with soccer. Somebody
yeah.
just sits there watching the game, just going, "Yep, pass, record, move on."
Yeah. So, there's a couple things there. So, back in the old days, I used to try to track some stuff by hand during the game. I moved to doing a lot of it video after the fact. It is a lot of charting, like you said. I do think there is some value to trying to find some key stats that I think are meaningful for the team, or that the coach thinks um, are meaningful to be able to provide information at intermissions. So I do think, like, and I'm an old person, and there's only so much detail that I can track accurately live during the game. So I keep it simple. Um, but for the bulk of what I do, it's doing stuff after the fact, and it's several hours of going through the video per game. But then the good news is you've got all this detail. You got all the detail that you want. Obviously, there's discussions every year between what I think is important, what the coaching staff thinks is important, and I certainly wouldn't want to be tracking any stats that I think are complete junk, even if the coaches are high on them. But I think it's obviously over 12 years is getting an understanding of how coaches think to begin with. Um, yeah, but once you have the data, then you can slice it and dice it in so many different ways. You've got all this detail. How's this player doing over the course of the season? Are they dropping off in something over the course of the season? Is there some player who's worse in the second period? So when there's a long change, or is there a player that's dropping off on third periods? Are there players that are better um, Friday versus Saturday? So there's once you have the data, then there's all these different things that you can dig for in the data, and yeah, especially when you got it on that kind of granular level that you can just filter for this kind of stuff and look for it.
Right. So, and that's a very good point. That actually leads me to a side question. I know with the NCAA and I know with NIL has changed a lot of things, but I know there's a lot of restrictions and how much players can be involved with their teams, involving with team activities. From your position, is it a case of do you ever talk directly to the players, or is it typically you talk to the coaches, and the coaches will talk to the players, and they'll be sort of the communicator, so to speak, of what you're finding out?
Yeah, there was one year at Clarkson where it was during COVID. They had their volunteer coach, the volunteer coach position has been done away with a couple of years ago by the NCAA. But back when there were volunteer coaches, that's typically the goalie coach was a volunteer coach. So
Goalie.
he was not getting paid at all, and it was basically his way of drumming up business for his goalie clientele. But anyway, so our goalie coach was over on the Canadian side of the border, so they weren't able to have the goalie coach for whatever one of those post-COVID years. So I was the volunteer coach at Clarkson for a year, and so that certainly gave me a bigger chance. Was that 21, 22? That might be the right season for that.
Yeah, that would have been that
So
one. Yeah.
I was, certainly a little bit more hands-on with the players but regardless of whether you are allowed to instruct players or not, even if you are, certainly coming from a very outside perspective, this foreign perspective of being a hockey analytics guy rather than part of I don't know, the core coaching staff that's looking at drills and thinking about systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be in a position where I'm going to say something that's going to confuse a player. I'm going to say something that might seem to be contradicting what the head coach is saying as far as systems. So, I mean, I think I think you need to be careful with it anyway. But certainly, I'm part of the broader coaching staff, and you're certainly players. If you're asked questions, I'm happy to let somebody know what the analytical thinking is on something. But clearly, I mostly work with the head coach and the assistant coaches, and it's their job to be speaking with the players and directing them as far as what they're doing on the ice.
Right, and that makes sense. You don't want to necessarily put your thumb on the scale, so to speak, and give a player, especially a younger player, contradicting advice, or have them like start second guessing themselves, going, "Ooh, should I be carrying this puck in more often?" It's like, no, you need to do. Hockey's a dangerous enough sport. You don't need to be thinking this much.
Yeah, I think there's different personalities, different learning styles, different. Somebody's skilled, somebody's got hockey sense. One of the examples that I bring up from Clarkson, where I was, I felt really good in that volunteer coach role, um, was we had a really skilled forward, Alex Campbell, who was not just a hockey player. He was actually an engineering student too. So really bright guy. So, somebody who, I would be more comfortable with talking about analytics, and certainly I had cases where I spoke with other players, and I'm just like, did that really work? Did it backfire? Did it just kind of bounce off a brick wall?
Yeah. Did you
So
overload them with stuff they never heard of
yeah,
before?
just like, yeah, but but I had enough data from the previous season where I said, Alex, last season you had a bunch of chances off of rebounds, you had a bunch of goals off of rebounds, and that's kind of dried up this year. And showed him the numbers, not so many numbers to make his head explode, but again, a bright guy, a skilled guy. Next game we're playing against Yale, he pots a rebound goal, and he was so excited after the game, like, and so that, I mean, that is super rewarding, and that's, I wish I could be in that kind of true coach role, because that's the kind of experience that really is very rewarding, and it's what you want analytics to do. Analytics,
Yes.
it's not magic, it's not BS, it's not the end all be all, but there are cases where you got that insight of, I think I found something. Maybe this will help our team or somebody on our team. So that was a case that was really fulfilling in that way.
Right, and more than just that is a fantastic example of why we focus so much on stuff like this. Whether you're a fan like me or in your position where, again, you were a volunteer coach, you can say, I made a difference. Numbers helped make the data made it helped drive a better decision, helped, and we got to see the reward, and everyone benefits. And it's always a good time for Yale to get scored on, with you being working at Quinnipiac, your hated rival.
Yeah, and even with Clarkson, it was nice to score against Yale. So yeah,
of course. Now, speaking of Quinnipiac, and I actually just noticed this as I pulled the book out for this stream here. Rand Pecknold gave a back cover quote to the last book that I have here of the prospectus. So I imagine, has Coach Pecknold been that supportive of what you've been doing, and encouraging of the work you've been doing, since Quinnipiac has certainly rose to the top of the Hockey Mountain in college?
Yeah, so I mean, so that was the last book we put out, was the 2015-2016 book.
Yep.
And so I worked, started my D1 career in the 14-15 and 15-16 seasons with Quinnipiac as a hockey analytics advisor. So in 2016, it's the only time Quinnipiac has won the ECAC tournament.
Yep.
And then we made it to the NCAA final, lost against North Dakota. Devon Taves was on that team. So I mean,
very good North Dakota team.
And North Dakota obviously was loaded as well. So yeah, so that quote was back from my previous era with Quinnipiac.
Right, but since then they still are. I think some of the projections, they're looking to do really well in the conference again this year. I know last year was unfortunate that UConn, I believe it was UConn that knocked out Quinnipiac. I think that's what happened in the tournament.
We got knocked out 2 years ago by
mistake.
UConn. We won our first round game against Providence this past year, and then lost to North Dakota. We played in South Dakota, so basically like a home game for them.
Oh yeah, of course. But nevertheless, I mean, the fact that Quinnipiac, this little school in Connecticut, has risen to be a consistent power, and it's doing so without, no disrespect to the Bobcats, no disrespect to yourself or Mr. Peckhold or any of the recruits out there, but you look at this list of like alumnus from other colleges in the East and in the Midwest, where you just look at, oh, this guy's been drafted, this guy's in the NHL, and the leading Quinnipiac guys, include Connor Clifton, who, no disrespect to New Jersey, but not exactly the high end, it's not Devin Taves, it's not his brother Jonathan, it's not Zach Parisi, So it's impressive that the Bobcats have continued to be this, force in the ECAC, and now that the Canadian juniors have all come into NCAA hockey, how do you think Quinnipiac and schools like Quinnipiac are going to be able to manage that now that you've got the high end talent coming in from up north?
Yeah, and certainly I don't work on the recruiting side, and I don't know how deep I want to get into this, commenting on this anyway. But I mean, like, clearly across the board, the NCAA was boosted in a big way by all of this talent that was able to come in through the CHL league. So you're talking about the OHL, the
QMJHL, the WHL.
Right, and that WHL, right? So the big major junior teams, and now you've got like a bunch of these really top draft picks. Obviously, Gavin McKenna played for Penn State last year, whatever.
Yeah.
So you've got D1 has really become like the top feeder league for the NHL, whereas it was major junior before. Now it's for a lot of guys, it's major junior for a year or two, and then you have a stop in D1. So we had a bunch of really good freshman players come in, a bunch of them from the CHL last year. They were among our top scorers. So all of those guys are coming back. I don't know a ton of detail about the players that we have coming in, but certainly we lost key role players, but as far as like a bunch of our punch of our talent, it's still there, and then we're adding to it. So I'm really excited about what this year entails, and hoping obviously that we make it quite far.
Yeah, no, I mean, on paper, this team looks really strong. I know Ethan Wittenbach, he's been doing great at the World Junior Summer Showcase for America. You got Chris Pelosi, again, he's a New Jersey guy. I have to big up the New Jersey guys. There's a lot of good talent, and the Bobcats, I'm sure, are going to continue to be a massive success story, as they have been for the last several years. Because again, 30 years ago, not so much. And I know the old tagline was worst team in D3 to now, there's a national championship. There's Frozen Four appearances. You're winning conferences, and no one is just going, why is this happening? It's like, it's Quinnipiac. They're good. Deal with it.
And it's really a testament to it's a testament to good coaching, good recruiting. So you don't Quinnipiac in some ways. It's obviously hard to compete against BU, BC, Michigan, North Dakota, Minnesota. I mean, the real big boys, but you've made enough of a name for yourself with a national championship, multiple finals games, where the recruits know that they're coming to a really good program, and a program that can develop them. I mean, that's a lot of people were thinking that Wittenbach would go pro, or that he would transfer or whatever. He chose to stay at Quinnipiac, and I think that that's a real testament to saying like what a prospect who looks like he has a bright future, what he thinks is his best development path. And I think that, I'm really happy to be part of a program that's thought of that highly.
Yeah. Okay. So just to sort of start wrapping things up, there is a couple questions I do want to ask more general about analytics. And we touched upon this a little bit earlier, but I really want to ask, okay, we've gone from blogs, we've gone from arguments on the internet, Tyler Dello yelling at David Johnson endlessly, things like, yeah, exactly. I remember those days too well. I was just a bystander. I just have a decent memory. But
I guess that's how you become an AGM. So
yep.
There you go.
You have to be willing to argue and also be a lawyer. It also helps.
Mm-hmm.
More seriously though, now that again we've touched on what we would like to see, AI is now in the mix, and I think again, what if you had a magic wand and could say what would be the next big thing for hockey analytics, hockey analysis, and things of that nature, what would you want to see?
What would I want to see? I mean, like one of the things that I know that is on the radar, and it's certainly been talked about in articles and stuff like that, is as far as the data that the NHL is looking to collect, so currently the puck and player tracking data is players on the ice 12 times a second, the puck 60 times a second as far as location, and then you use that to derive all these other things for shot speed and possession and passes and whatnot. Obviously you have limitations if you just have 1 point for a player. One of the technologies that they're looking to bring in is detection of multiple points on a player's body and the stick. So I think it's a couple dozen points, and I know they've certainly been, whatever the right word is, prototyping this, testing this out already for a couple of years. I mean, like, it's both an opportunity and a pump the brakes moment. Like, if on one hand you're having trouble turning out your full data set from your puck and player tracking. Hey, we're having trouble dealing with this amount of data. Let's multiply that by 100, and
Yes.
that obviously is going to be a solution for us. But I think there's a lot of things where you do need, particularly you need stick recognition.
Okay.
So when you're trying to figure out who's the pucks in between four different players from the two teams, who's touching the puck, um, automatically detecting shot types. Again, like if you've got multiple points on the stick blade, um, that you can detect, now you could automatically detect if that's a slap shot or a wrist shot or whatever. So I do think that is, um, something where they're looking to add that data set, and I think that, um, that can bring a lot of extra usefulness. But I do think that there's a danger of, oh, but we've got this new technology. This will be even better. So forget about what we're in, and like you never finish kind of like the last project. I think
Yeah.
just with the base puck and player tracking data, again, all of those primary building blocks that we're looking for with possession and passes and so on, they really should be done. It's there to be done. But then you can enhance that again with some of these other things. One of the things that you mentioned were, um, previously, was traffic and,
Yeah. All
visibility.
puck
So
movement. Yeah.
like, does the, are you able to screen the goalie or whatever? I think that could be pretty tricky because, like, how do you know exactly where the goalie's eyes are? If
Yeah.
the goalie's head is 3 inches or 6 inches this way or that way, or his glance is turned a certain direction, how do you know what he sees and exactly when he picks up the puck? So that's one where I 100% agree that that's a big deal. And, as a coaching staff, as a player, whatever, you want to take advantage of screening the opposing goalie, and you want to make sure your goalie isn't screened and all those things. That is something where, um, I'm not sure what it will take from technology for it to get really good, um, stats for that. Obviously, you've got, I imagine that, groups like Steve Valiquette's, Clear Sight Analytics, I think
Yeah.
that's right. They're very goalie focused on, trying to figure out what the circumstances are around, goalies on different shots and the nuances there. So, I mean, like, you can have somebody tracking that, a human being and an expert human being, and trying to give your best guess there. But again, if you're trying to do everything automatically, immediately, repeatably, um, you'd like to have technology be able to do that. And I think goalie vision and screens, I think, it's a particularly tough one, I think.
Yeah, and I understand the challenges. I mean, in a sense, the fact that you could have somebody there counting it, identifying what it is, and then in a sense you could proceduralize it so this way you can train a model or you can train AI video, readings, so to speak, or even just a system of saying this is how you're supposed to count this. That would be big. But again, it comes down to, as you said, you got to set the building blocks and have the philosophies correct. So this way, when you do scale up, or you do add technology, or you do add these other things, you're doing it. You're getting the right information. You're not confounding it with other things that you just said it's not a big deal, and then you find out years later actually it was a big deal, and now we're paying the price. But that's a common issue, regardless of whether that's hockey analytics, employing a new ERP system at a business, changing a process, changing a changing a design. But these are all challenges that have to be done here, and I fully agree. Like, that would be something wonderful. I think that would take things to the next level, because it's one of those things that you hear coaches and players and others talk about. You and I can watch a game and go, "Oh yeah, he screened the goalie. That makes it harder for him to stop this. That's why he got beat." But it's harder to go back unless you are super meticulous in your note taking to say, this goalie has been screened a lot. Maybe the defense is a problem, or the goalie needs to learn how to track pucks better or get around screens. And ultimately, that's what I would like to see that too. But again, I agree. We're not at a point where we're not at a point where we can start doing that, as a hobbyist, much less as a professional. But that's a perfectly good way to go. And again, I think once the technology continues to improve, I think we're going to start seeing more of those questions of saying maybe we can revisit those things we just kind of wrote off about 10, 15, 20 years ago. And yes, it's been 20 years at this point. I feel really old saying this.
Yep, I agree. I feel really old, period. So, but yeah, we've been around hockey analytics for a while now, certainly 15 years at least.
Exactly. Well, in any case, thank you again, Timo, for coming on to the Jersey Overtime. Hopefully, you came in, sounded great. Hopefully, my webcam did a good job picking up my noises, but you heard my questions. So at the very least, we had a great time ourselves. So,
yep.
So I want to thank you again for coming on. Check out the Hockey Data Show on NHL Network Radio and SiriusXM. Follow the Quinnipiac Bobcats this season. I believe you guys get started in September.
First game might be October 2nd.
Okay,
so,
October.
Players hit the ice for practices last week of August.
Okay, so October 2nd, if you're in the Connecticut area, it's going to be a great time. If you're able to see Quinnipiac beat Yale, that's an even better time. But again, support the Bobcats. Timo and the team over there have been doing a great work over there. And again, thanks to everybody who's watched this stream, either live or in the past, or in the future, I should say. So thank you all.